today we're going to be talking about my favorite decks for working with the god, the archetype, the myth that is Satan the Devil. I want to begin just like Lucifer's deck list by talking about how I experience the energy of Satan the Devil. So he's very important to me personally. I experience him as a very powerful, personal spirit guide and a deity that is ride or die. I consider him a patron and a lifelong deity that I devote a lot of my practice and work to. Many people consider him the root of all evil. I consider him the questioning god, and his energy and his presence and communication with him assisted me in surviving a very difficult Christian cult upbringing. Many of you know that I was raised by Jehovah's Witnesses, a very strict strain of that religion. And so I am very deeply thankful that I have the energy of Satan that supported and guided me in surviving the brainwashing and the level of shame that is inculcated in people who are working in those type of environments. So if you're currently healing from some form of religious, let's use the word abuse or inculcation, Satan may be an energy that you want to call in and work with to help change your perspective, release guilt and shame, and open up to the beauty and the spirituality of your own physicality and your human experience. Instead of looking at yourself as fallen and sinful, to look at yourself as divine, as worthy, and as lovable, exploring a soul evolution and growth on this human journey. That is what Satan has helped me to embrace and open up to. So for me, he is very much a loving, supportive entity and being. And I do want to talk today about decks that you can use to work with him. Now, when I say how I've experienced him personally, which is very positively, very intimate and beautiful, I don't want to negate his myths because we, factor in all deities' myth when we're working with them, right? So, of course, we do know that he is considered the root of evil, that his work was to attempt to lead humans into sin and to sin against God, to see if they were really holy and if they really loved God or if they were only doing it for what they could get out of it. We see in the book of Job that Satan is a questioning God. He asks questions of both God and humans in that book. And of course, in the book of Revelations, it is foretold that he will lead the armies against God and will then be punished. Of course, he was cast out of heaven, sent to rule in hell or here on earth, depending on how you look at that translation, etc. So there's a lot of layers to his myths, and it's very cold today, guys. Sorry, I'm all wrapped up. I started the day in a black sweater, but it's too cold and I needed to add some layers. So anyhow, I digress. There's the train. Working with him has been very profoundly healing for me, and it is a relationship that's assisted me to begin healing wounds around the sacred masculine and male energy in my personal life. So we honor his myth, and I think that Satan holds a space of understanding a lot of our wounds and giving us the space to ask questions of ourselves so that we can understand ourselves and our stories better, as well as what we want to experience in life and embracing our own physicality. Think of the devil card in the tarot, right? So that being said, let's talk about some decks that I love to work with when I want to connect with him. And this is just like the Lucifer list, kind of in a semblance of order. The top 3 decks are going to be the ones that I consider the most powerful to connect with him. But all of these decks on this list are worthy additions to connect with the energy of Satan the Devil. So the first deck on the list is the Deviant Moon Tarot. There's so many reasons why I love this deck, and I think it lends itself really well to the nighttime magic that is synonymous with the energy of Satan the Devil. Of course, everything cemetery, Victorian, turn of the century is shown in this deck. And there's this very industrial vibe as well, which I think lends itself well to looking at how we punish ourselves at a societal level and at a planetary level as well. So this deck is 100% honest. I've always found Satan to be a very honest deity, very truthful, very upfront. He doesn't lie. And because I walk with him daily so intimately, while he has a great sense of humor, his wit can be quite acerbic. And so this deck, I think, it does that well. It holds that energy well. Patrick Valenza is amazing. And if you're able to purchase the hardcover guidebook for this deck, I strongly encourage it. It will flip a lot of the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith meanings on their head and give you pause for reflection and journaling in a totally different arena than perhaps you originally thought when you pulled the card, if you're working with the traditional Rider-Waite symbolism and card meanings. So it is in alignment with Satan's energy as well, because I do consider him the questioning God. I do consider him a perspective flipper. And this deck does that as well in the guidebook and also in the artwork. So this is the Deviant Moon Tarot. This is the borderless edition, and I definitely recommend it for working with the energy of Satan the Devil. The next deck on the list is the Divine Circus Oracle. As much as I hate clowns, I love this deck. This is the first edition, hence the different backing than you will see if you purchase the deck new now. I love the honesty, the beauty, the darkness, and the truth of this deck. It's one that really loves to have a conversation, to spend time with you, and to help you to see how you are holding yourself back, selling yourself short, trying to fit in, and not allowing yourself to be who you truly are. It opens you up to believing in yourself and in your worth and value at a new level. And I love this deck for that reason. To me, Satan is very much a cheerleader as well as a truth teller. And this deck feels like it's cheering me on while it's also being very honest with me. So I love this deck. I have a very big sweet spot in my heart for this deck and for a lot of the artwork in it. I love the images I love. I hate the images I hate. There's no there's no like meh feeling with this deck. And I think if you are here and you're wanting to connect with the energy of Satan, or you want to bitch about Satan, you either love the entity or you hate the entity, right? I don't think there's really an in-between. And I feel that this deck holds that energy as well. You either love parts of this deck or you hate it, but there's no tepid experience with the imagery of this deck. Just looking for my favorite image, which always hides for me every time I talk about this deck. But this is the Divine Circus Oracle by Alana Fairchild. It's really beautiful, very special, and does hold the energy of Satan, in my opinion. The next deck on the list was gifted to me by a very dear friend. This is the Tantric Dakini Oracle. This deck has an amazing sense of humor. It's super powerful. It packs a punch. It's not for the faint of heart, and you really have to be like, you have to meet this deck as an equal. I love it. I actually really love this deck. I use it a lot in client work, but I think as a clarifier to a deck like, say, Deviant Moon Tarot, when you're attempting to communicate and get messages from Satan, then this deck is really powerful for that, especially if you're looking to reconcile your physicality with your spiritual experience and release guilt and shame around your body. This deck is a really great one to help you get into the grit and the dirt and to be unafraid of immersing yourself in experiencing the ecstasy of union with the divine within your physical being. This deck really lends itself well to that. So this is the Tantric Dakini Oracle. While I don't necessarily use it on its own for messages from Satan, I do like to use it to clarify my tarot decks when I'm working with getting messages from Satan for where I am on my path. The next deck on the list is the Thoth Tarot by Crowley. How could we not include this on the list? I think in popularized myth, excuse me, that didn't come out right. In popularized culture, I don't know, Crowley is synonymous with the devil, you know, and I'm sure that's intentional on his part. Crowley was a motherfucker for a lot of reasons, and I don't know, there's too many layers. he isn't simple, and Satan's not simple, and the Thoth Tarot is not simple. The Thoth, the Thoth, the Toth, however you would like to pronounce this. I think Lady Frida Harris's artwork is beautifully reminiscent of medieval architecture and stained glass imagery within churches to me. And so when I want to connect with the Christian aspect of the myth of Satan, with the idea of the occult arts and black magic and the mystery that Satan holds within himself and his legions of demons, I like to work with the Thoth Tarot. I don't use the Thoth Tarot to read for anyone but myself. Very, very rarely do I ever pull for other people with the Thoth Tarot. I'm secretive about this deck. I like having a secret. I think Satan probably likes having a secret too. But I do think if you want to connect with the energy of Satan, this is a great deck to find a doorway in. Especially into the more kind of rigid belief systems about him and looking at him as the shadow to Christ's light. You can find a lot of sweet to explore within this deck. It's enjoyable. It's fun. It's also confounding, confusing, serious, and a bit punishing. And sometimes we need that. And I think this deck is unafraid to offer that. And it's very evocative of the more Christian religious myth of Satan the devil. And so if you're looking for a way in to that, then Crowley's Thoth Tarot is a wonderful avenue to explore. I highly recommend it if you're looking to connect with the energy of Satan the devil. So that's the Thoth Tarot. Let's see, what we're going to do next on the list. Okay. Next on the list is the Tarot of the Abyss. I love this deck. When I want to connect with the more intimate aspect of my relationship with Satan, when I want to have more of a conversation with him, when I want to feel understood by anyone, you know, those moments when you feel like you're trying your best and it's just like it's never enough and no one understands where you are. This deck is that wonderful friend to have a conversation with. You know, I think if I'm going to have a glass of wine with Lucifer, when I'm with Satan lately, I'm probably going to drink a gimlet with him and really talk about the meaning of life and human incarnation and the point of the experiences we undergo in this realm. I think that Satan can be very loving and patient and open to subtle turns of phrase that can help you understand something that you felt you would never understand. And this deck is wonderful for that type of conversation. There's something about the ink sketches, the lack of color, the stillness and the wisdom within the imagery that I think evokes an ancient energy. And this is something that Satan is connected with. It also, I love the word abyss, and I love the idea of Satan as the ruler of the underworld in Christian myths. The wisdom that comes from understanding that which is rejected, that which is deemed dirty, evil, dark, other, gross. This deck it shines a light into those areas for us, but it isn't a light of further rejection. Instead, it's a light of understanding and stillness. And I really love that about this deck. And so when I want to connect with Satan in that way, Tarot of the Abyss is a powerful, powerful deck for that. And I really recommend it for those times when you just want to take your time with tarot, when you don't want to rush, you know, when you actually have set some time aside to work a spread or to do a pull and journal and to just feel seen in your spiritual practice as well as listen. I think the Tarot of the Abyss is really, really special for that. Okay, so that being said, I'm moving into my top 4. These are essential decks for me when it comes to working with Satan's energy. They're just essential. They're essential in my collection, and they're essential decks to work with Satan. They're ones that I really feel like are in alignment with his energy, and I recommend them highly with caveats always, as one should understand when one is going to work with Satan as well. This is the mystical, magical botanical, mystical shaman, magical botanical. This is the magical botanical oracle. You guys know, like, I am not a green witch. I am not a garden witch. I do not have a green thumb. That is not me, right? I'm an energetic and an elemental witch. I don't work with plants, but I fucking love this deck. And when I want to connect to the elemental earthy aspect of Satan, this is the deck that I want. Now, if I'm talking with Satan and working with this deck, I'm definitely having something with bourbon in it. This time of year, a hot toddy. Oh my God, guys, this deck is just beautiful. And I feel like it has an understanding for the wildness of the energy of Satan, for the earthy, rooted energy of Satan, and how, from a perspective of nature, nothing is good or bad. It simply is. And there's a role that we're all playing and fulfilling. And when we look at the myth of Satan from the Christian perspective, there was a role that, if we want to go with this myth, bear with me, I'm not saying I believe this, I'm talking about the myth. God, let me say this right. God created Satan, if we look at him as omnipotent, knowing that Satan was going to turn against him, therefore created him with a role to fulfill. And I think that this deck has an understanding of the grittiness and the roles that we fulfill. And when we are going to work magic, and when we are working with the plants, when we're working with nature as witches, we're connecting in with using nature to our own ends at times. There is a line you're walking. It's a fine line, and you have to be aware of what you're doing. And so there's a responsibility that comes with working with a deck like this. There's a responsibility that comes with following your own spiritual path. And I think this deck catches that energy well. And I think that Satan has an innate awareness of that energy. And this deck marries to that well. It's just also fucking beautiful to work with. So I have said many a time on the channel when I talk about this deck that there is an image that I do intend to get tattooed on me from this deck. That's how beautiful I think this deck is. It's a very, very special deck. So that is the Magical Botanical Oracle. Even if you are not a plant witch, even if you're not an herbalist, this deck has something special in it for everyone, in my opinion, and it's a beautiful, beautiful deck. Okay, top 3. Here we go. This deck was going to be on my late fall favorites, but she disappeared on me, as she is wont to do. This deck I work with when I want to connect with the horned god aspect of Satan. So this is predating the Christian myth. This is the entity of Satan in alignment with the horned god, the lord of the forest. This is that wild, fertile, virile, sacred masculine energy. And I do think that the Heart of Fairies Oracle holds the essence of that well within it. I mean, look, bottom of the deck is the question. It had to be on the Satan deck list for racing, didn't it? This deck is really, really special. It's beautiful. It's got a slightly different feel than the original Fairies Oracle. It is a relationship-focused deck, but I actually don't only use it for relationships. I use it across the board. I love to use it as a clarifier to tarot. I also love to use this deck alone. There's a specific image in here that I do. There's actually 2 images that I do. Here they are. Thank you. That I do associate with the energy of Satan, and that I feel... I love this image too. Sorry, I love this deck. Oh my God, this deck is so beautiful. Look at this. Guys, this deck is everything. I think it might be out of print right now. But these 2 images, the Remembrance and the Thief, really call to mind how I experience the horned god. And they really call to mind for me the energy of Satan. And when we're working with the shadow aspect of Satan, how we can get stuck and lost in the past, and also how we can take or be taken from in ways that cross lines, cross boundaries. These 2 images speak a lot about that in the guidebook, but also just these images of the sacred masculine and the Fae masculine really lend themselves well to working with the energy of Satan, the devil. I also find that Satan is one of my favorite faces of deity to bitch about my relationships too. And with, like, really, for real, I'm not even gonna lie to you. That would be over a glass of Prosecco. But this image especially is the one that I think of when I think of Satan, the Prince of Darkness here. Excuse me, the Prince of Shadow. I do call Satan the Dark Prince, the Prince of Darkness. But this image especially, the face. Now I do see Satan with dark hair, not light. I see Lucifer with white hair, but this image of the face does remind me of Satan. So those three aspects of the sacred masculine, but in particular, this is the personification of Satan. The other two as shadow aspects of Satan. There's just such a way that I do think the Fae very much in alignment with the energy of Satan, the devil. They're fully fledged entities. So they're not all loving, unconditionally compassionate, without foibles, without faults. There are shadow aspects to all deity, just as there are shadow aspects to us. And I think the Heart of Fairies Oracle really speaks to those shadow aspects without shame, just honestly. And as I said, I do love to bitch to Satan about my relationships or areas, connections where I feel like there's something I'm struggling to understand or come to terms with, or a cycle I'm trying to break that's just really difficult for me. I think that Satan is a wonderful energy to walk with, that is just by your side. You know, there's no like he's above, you below. Instead, there's this really beautiful sense of equality, and the Heart of Fairies Oracle speaks beautifully to that sense of equality. So that is a very special deck to me for a lot of reasons, and it very much is evocative of the energy of Satan the devil. Okay, top two. These are the ones I most highly recommend if you want to connect with the energy of Satan the devil. I'm sure many of you guessed it, the Mary L. Tarot is number 2 on the list. So Marie White, she knocked it out of the park with this deck, and she worked with a lot of Christian myth and symbolism. So this deck is just perfection to connect with the energy of Satan the devil. And it's got this occult grittiness, this fiery passion to it that's just exciting. There's also this unequivocally unapologetic union of the male and the female within this deck that I think Satan would get a really big kick out of. I think he does get a big kick out of it. It's a deck that is confronting in a way that Satan as an entity very much, that's his job. It's to help us to look at where the wounds are. It's to help us to look at the shadow. It's to help us to confront our fears. It's to help us to embrace who we truly are. And the Mary L. Tarot is just fucking everything. I love this deck so much. This is a first edition. Yes, I am aware of how special it is that I still have my first edition, and nothing's going to take this deck away from me. I love this deck so freaking much. I'll just show you some of my favorite imagery in this deck, but this is a wonderful one to have an authentic, real, accurate conversation. The 10s in this deck are the 4 horsemen from the book of Revelations. So like I said, it's rife with Christian myth and symbolism. And it's a galvanizing, energizing deck. So if you're looking to bring that kind of energy into your practice, I cannot recommend a deck more. There is one image in here. That I wanted to find. Oh, I do love the 6 of Wands. So guys, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? 10 of Swords. It's another rider. Isn't that beautiful? Sorry guys, it snowed here, and so we're giving it our best shot. Look at the, oh my God, there's so many great images. Okay, I'm stopping. I'm stopping because I'm not going to stop. This is the Mary L. Tarot by Marie White. It's really fucking special. It's really beautiful. To me, it is a very clear channel and portal to talk with Satan, to work with him, to understand his myth, and to understand yourself better as well. So that is the Mary L. Tarot. My #1 deck for working with Satan the Devil. I know you guys won't be surprised because it's my #1 tarot deck of all time, Tarot of Vampires. In the same way that I consider the Tarot of Vampires a Capricorn and my husband deck, Satan the Devil is also the energy of the devil in the tarot, associated with card number 15 within the major arcana, associated with Capricorn. So there's an earthy, lusty energy to the Tarot of Vampires in the same way that Satan just naturally carries an earthy, lusty energy. There is a call to connect with the physical as sacred when you work with this deck. Not only are you working with the myth of vampires, but you're working with a lot of elemental, occult symbolism and magic. This deck is infinite. It calls from multiple reading traditions, multiple occult traditions, and it's unapologetic in how intense it is. This deck is not for the faint of heart. It's not for someone who doesn't want to understand all aspects of themselves, the human experience, and the experience of Sophia. So if you are not in a space to go into that place, to travel within your own underworld, then you're not ready for the Tarot of Vampires. But if you are, and if you want to have an understanding of Satan as the voice connected to the no thing, then this deck is right for you. This is my original first edition. This puppy has been through it, still going strong. I have trimmed it and edged it with red permanent marker. So if you buy the deck, it's not going to look like this. You'll have to do work to create it like this. But this deck is for me, my first and primary tool for communicating, working, walking, and talking with Satan as I move throughout my daily life and my spiritual practice. So if you have been looking for decks to connect with the energy of Satan, I hope that this list helps you. I hope it gives you some jumping off points. Feel free to explore his myth and then get to know the deity on your own. Don't be afraid to have your own journeys, communications, and conversations with him. And allow your relationship to be based on how you personally experience him, not on how he has been villainized by Christianity. I hope you are all doing well out there in the world. As always, I am sending you guys so much love and many blessings, and I will see you as always in the next video. Take care.